Bo día na sala. Miguel, escoitasme? Sí, vale, perfecto. Pois moitas grazas. Eu a ti tamén se vos escoita agora de volta, creo que temos son. Estamos ilusionados porque xa hai moita xente esperándote, Miguel. Temos unha gran afluencia de público hoxe que non queremos aburrir, así que vamos tratar de ser o máis puntuais posibles con este inicio da actividade de hoxe. Antes de nada, darches grazas a Miguel por a túa empatía sempre a colaboración, a cousa que te agradecemos moitísimo. Para as persoas que estén en liña e non coñezan a Miguel, decir que o profesor Miguel Gonzalez Loureiro é catedrático da Universidade de Vigo e, ademais, ele é o coordinador do doutorado interuniversitario en Economía e Empresa, o que se chama Análise Económica e Estrategia Empresarial das tres universidades. E hoxe temos un número bastante grande de alumnos nas tres universidades que cursan este programa. Bueno, pois día a día é moi interesante saber que se pode facer e que non é tan aconsellable facer pois con estas novas tecnoloxías e capacidades que temos de inteligencia artificial e outros. Así que agradecemos moito a Miguel que nos conte hoxe un pouco que é a súa experiencia, algunhas reflexións ao respecto e deixamos xa aberta a charla para él. E dicir aos compañeiros e compañeiras que hoxe están online que non dubiden de facer as preguntas que consideren pertinentes no chat. E, a su vez, bueno, pois os compañeros da Universidade de Vigo que están en presencial teñen a oportunidade de facelo aí en vivo en directo co micrófono que se pasará pola sala. Agradecemos que se pase o micrófono porque así tamén escoitamos os demais, pero que temos moita ilusión en escoitar o que nos vas a contar. Así que moitas grazas de antemán, Miguel, e disculpas por non poder estar hoxe aí contigo. Moitas grazas.
Moitas gracias, María. Penso que temos bastante xente no chat e probablemente tamén sexa xente que non é toda hispanofarlante e temos tamén algunha investigadora de Polonia, entón vou cambiar ao inglés. Eu estaba preparado para español, mesmo para galego, pero vou pasar a inglés porque penso que será o mellor. So you can download the presentation, will be available until May 25. If you cannot scan the code, then simply the direct link, and in any other case, you can ask for this presentation, because I think it has most of the main artificial intelligences based on large language models. So it's a very specific artificial intelligence. It's not any artificial intelligence, only those that are related to language, the issue we are going to review. And I will review specifically those that are particularly oriented to the scientific research, because we already know ChatGPT, Gemini, and this type of general artificial intelligences. But the idea today is, how is this issue right now in the academic terms, whether there are any of the artificial intelligence can do much of the most, let's say, administrative work of searching for, summarizing, and this type of things. So very likely you are here because you want to simply rubber the lamp and suddenly you have the paper written. Not the case. And forget about automatic writing. I don't think that any artificial intelligence right now and in the future can write a good scientific paper. At least what I mean with good scientific paper. It can write a paper. It can be scientific somehow, but it's not a good scientific paper. Trust me. So I don't think that the automatic writing is a concern, or should be a concern for either journals, supervisors of PhDs, and the like. But there are some other applications that I think you can use this type of artificial intelligences and can speed up the process, even for a first-year PhD student. Most of the time is allocated to searching, detecting what are the core papers, although the supervisor can tell you which ones are the main papers, the core papers, then you need to update these references. So there are some of the artificial intelligence here can do the work for you and even can provide nice tables summarizing this type of content. But in any case, what is right now the problem of most of the artificial intelligences? Here, well, is a nice picture, but I try to summarize the idea here to poor prompt, poor instructions will lead to poor results. A case of a PhD student with a blank sheet trying to think, figure out what can I research about what, don't know the topic. Let's try to figure out the topic. And suddenly an artificial intelligence appears. And what is the interpretation of the artificial intelligence? White sheets, this type of sheets, so suddenly this is the result. If the prompt, if the instructions is very poor, the result will be very poor. You cannot expect wonderful things if you don't allocate time to refine the prompt. I will review the main structure of the ideal prompt for this type of artificial intelligences that rules and is present in all of the specific scientific artificial intelligences. And then the usual thing of, well, the more you know about something, the more you know that you don't know. And we will never know about nothing and about everything. We cannot know about many of the different areas, but the artificial intelligence can give you a glimpse, a quick glimpse of what is outside there, and even for some cases can provide ideas for future research, although it's very likely it won't be very original. So I will split very briefly, because this can be a topic for a larger session, but I will try to summarize how this type of artificial intelligences work first, then for what we can use this, and examples of specific scientific research-oriented artificial intelligences. Then some ideas how to use the general, but I think that this is the most interesting part of the session of today. So, how this works? Well, in December 2023, right now, the general artificial intelligences companies are developing the idea of, let's say, competing in science. All the artificial intelligences companies are trying to write scientific papers on how good they are in machine learning, in prediction, and the like. And these three papers are based on the open chat or the chat GPT. And what they discover, that this type of artificial intelligences do not need to evaluate and analyze all the words in a single document, just certain, let's name, tokens. And a token can be a full-length word, can be only the root of the word, or can be a more complex expression. But all of this is about language and prediction. The artificial intelligences, what they use is a machine learning algorithm. The machine learning algorithms, because in scientific research, we are especially concerned with regression analysis and all this type of analysis that they are trying to search for explaining something, proportion of variance, but the idea is explaining. In the case of machine learning, the idea is not to explain anything, it's to predict the future values based on a data set you have used to train the model and test the model. So if the environment changes, the prediction, the artificial intelligence can predict and be more or less accurate in the prediction more than a regression analysis. But how this works? Well, the large language models are based on, as the expression means, large language. It means what? They are not an encyclopedia. They don't know the exact meaning of what a child means. They know that very likely, following in a sentence the word child, it may appear father, mother, and this type of things. So don't trust that they will understand when you hear the child cross the street. Now you have an idea on your mind that the child can be in certain problems, a car may come and a crash or something. But the artificial intelligence is everything about conditional likelihood. Is that what? Because we are accustomed to this type of regression explanation, what is the different issue here? Well, in the regression, we have some data, we provide the rules of the equation, and we implement our regression and get the answers, the explanation. This is the usual that we are accustomed in scientific research. But the machine learning algorithm is slightly different. What we give to the machine learning, to the computer and the algorithm is two different sets of data, one for training purposes and another for test purposes. But this data must have the outcome. We must provide the labels for the outcome. So we train the model with past information. And we are providing the answers already. And what the machine learning does, develop an algorithm to get the rules, to get the equation. And we are not concerned in this type of machine learning prediction with the idea of over parameterization. We are not concerned of having 100 variables, because in regression analysis, if you have 100 variables, the regression can explain perfectly the past, but any small change will mean that the regression is invalid for the future. In the machine learning, that's not the case, because the parameters are not stable, and in any iteration, the machine learning learns. So the main idea is how is that large language models can provide an answer that is, they are words, they are not numbers. Essentially, because in this type of content analysis, we have some of the rules to translate words, topics, frequencies, in the frequency in the document. We have some rules to transform the words into numbers and have an association, and we may compute a conditional likelihood. Remember this, because to understand some of the answers of most all the machine learners that are based on large language models, the issue of the conditional probability that, for instance, in a world like this, meant to provide answers like humans, this is a conditional likelihood that humans will appear at the end of a sentence where we have the likelihood of these previous words. And that's all we need to know. We don't need to know what is the algorithm, neural networks, all these type of algorithms behind the machine learning. So, for instance, how does it work? If you provide, and this is part of the training model of any machine learning algorithm like this, if you ask the artificial intelligence to finish this sentence, the students open their, well, today everyone would say something like laptops or something like that. But in the early 90s or in the early 80s, it's very likely that we said handbooks. The likelihood of the word finishing the sentence has changed. But it doesn't matter for the artificial intelligence, because the artificial intelligence is a combination of machine learning algorithms, something more elaborated, that is deep learning algorithms. What is the difference between them is perhaps not relevant, but the deep learning is like leaving the computer for a week to make estimations, instead of machine learning that is an algorithm that finishes when there is a convergence criterion that is met. That's more or less the main idea. And then they enter the natural language processing research, that is a topic from in this case, computer science, and all of this summarized in a machine and a trained model is a certain artificial intelligence. And you can find artificial intelligences applied to banks, in the cars, electric vehicles, predicting the crash of a car so they pull the brake. All of these are certain artificial intelligence. They are developed and crafted specifically for certain issues. In this case, this type of artificial intelligences are crafted to be useful for providing like a human response. It seems that you are speaking about, or you are speaking with another person, but it's not the case. So what is relevant? To fulfill successfully this type of sentence, you need context. If we say, the context of the sentence is what? It's very different that we are speaking about babies 3 years old, university students in the worst developing country in the world, and it's very likely they don't have laptops or technology over there. So all this context will modify the conditional livelihood of the final word. In most of the artificial intelligences, you may use some type of parameter to be more precise or be more creative. If we ask the artificial intelligence to be more creative, in this case, the least likelihood is minds, because it's very, very creative. It doesn't mean that we have 100 words and we took the zero likelihood occurrence. It could be. But if you have this idea in mind, you will understand the limits of this type of artificial intelligence. Even why I think this type of artificial intelligence cannot write automatically a good scientific paper. It can write a paper. It may seem that it's scientific, but if you look at it, if you read carefully, you will detect certain patterns, and it's very likely that the final paragraph can be something like, in summary, in conclusion. And then it follows all the sentences above, summarized in a single sentence. They are more or less trained with this type of models. Then the context matters, of course. So there is a science right now trying to craft what we say the best prompt for any type of artificial intelligence like this. To me, I will summarize anything about the context, because it's the context of the task, the context of the instructions, and the context of the input and output you may want. If you ask the artificial intelligence, I'm a university professor researching in your topic. And when I say your topic, I'm saying provide a lot of explanation of this type of content. If it's innovation, everything the artificial intelligence needs to know if it were a first-year PhD student. Because the more context you give, the more refinement, the more accurate in the final prediction of the conditional probability of what is the word that should follow. That's the idea. So right now, what we should include? Well, provide many sentences about the context, define a clear task, what you want to obtain, and this should involve a verb of action and the focus style. If you ask the artificial intelligence to write for the strategic management journal, it will try to adopt that style. It doesn't mean that it knows what is the style. It's very likely that in the training process, it doesn't know what the strategic management journal is. But there is a kind of likelihood that the style may meet some type of standards. And this is why it's relevant. Even if you ask for New York Times, The Economist, the usual, because most of the artificial intelligence are located in the United States, most of the examples are biased by the American perspective, North American perspective. And then we may iteratively ask for additional instructions, refinements, and also in many of the general artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, U.com, this type of general artificial intelligence, they have short-term memory. They remember everything in a discussion, but they don't know anything about any other discussion in your user. They only have short-term memory. So if you use a conversation specifically for international business and everything of the international business is there, it will learn from that. So future prompts will be more accurate than if you start a new conversation with them. And even ChatGPT, the promise was in August 2023 or 2024 to be or to have a connection with the internet in the free version. We are still waiting for that. But in the August 2023, they included the personal user context. So you don't need to write every time you ask for something. It will know. In my prompt, for instance, in my user profile, I said that I emphasize accuracy. And because of that, when I asked for being creative, it says, I cannot do that because you told me that I need to be accurate, so cannot be creative, because there is a trade-off between both. You cannot have most of both. So this is the ideal prompt, the ideal structure of a prompt that should include something about the task, something about the instructions, and something about the context. The task. This type of artificial intelligence will work perfectly if you give a kind of role. You will play the role of an action editor of a scientific journal, and I want you to, now comes the task. This type of, let's say, role playing will be very useful for managing the style of the artificial intelligence. Then, in the topic, you need to be exhaustive here. You need to provide the more context, the better. And also the instructions. In the license of ChatGPT, if you pay the $20 per month, it may give you a formatted document, a formatted Excel, and the like. Of course, you need to review everything. And finally, the context. In the context, you may include your goal, what is the target audience. Is not, you may ask even to provide the content of presentations, and you may ask a presentation for a scientific forum that should be different for a presentation to the general audience of general public, for speaking with a manager or speaking with a newspaper or whatever. Then, what can we use these artificial intelligences in business management and economics for scientific research? Well, essentially, this has to do with the main process of research in this type of area. If you were a first-year PhD student, what is your first task? Reading. And it's very likely that during the first year, you don't write anything, because you need to read, comprehend, synthesize, and you will be able to create something new very likely by the end of the second or third year, because it takes a lot of time for you to learn. What I think that this type of artificial intelligence will speed up this process. Instead of 3 years, you will be able to have something in 1 year. It doesn't mean a paper for being published, but it means that will help you synthesize thousands and thousands of papers to detect what are the core papers. Even you can do that earlier, in the earlier days. If you analyze with a network analysis, you will know what are the core papers, the papers published later, and the like. But essentially, in my perspective, I think that will help in the knowledge synthesis, of course, very likely in knowledge evaluation and in knowledge translation. Knowledge translation in this case means being able to translate, imagine, in innovation, there is a construct named absorptive capacity. It means something. But how can we translate absorptive capacity from innovation to internationalization or finances or human resource investigations or any economics of health or any of the other areas? I think that artificial intelligence is useful for handling the language and to translate and give you some ideas. And then the knowledge development is perhaps the least likely to be useful for, because in the creation of new knowledge, the artificial intelligence cannot create new knowledge. How do you create new knowledge in your research? Think carefully about that. When you create something new is when you link in your brain this idea with that and that other, and suddenly you realize that the explanation must be something like this. And you start elaborating based on your memories and what you read, and even your supervisor, the co-author, may give you some hints. I don't think that an artificial intelligence can create something original. Why? Because it's based on the conditional likelihood that this word follows that, and if this word follows that, it means that someone has already said that. If you ask the artificial intelligence, what are the new research areas in risking internationalization? What is going to happen? We'll review the training model, and it's very likely it will provide you the suggestions of a paper published in the 90s, simply because there is a high likelihood that new research avenues and this topic follows. So don't expect for new knowledge creation in the case of any artificial intelligence. So the research process, what we do, search, read in a certain intersection, then find an unsolved research problem. Imagine that you upload all the PDFs in your topic to an artificial intelligence, and you ask what we know and what we don't know based on this corpus. Then it can tell you something, but it will tell you what the papers said is not already developed, but it won't create something new. You need to do that based on what you read, on what the artificial intelligence gives. Then potential explanations of the relations, and read a lot of different papers. How can help the artificial intelligence define the intersection? What is really the intersection? What are the main words for the search? How to write the problematization, and even check whether the problematization can pass the screen of a reviewer for a paper. Or summarizing. To me, summarizing is one of the most relevant utilities of this type of artificial intelligences. Potential uses. In general, artificial intelligences is perfect for summarizing, abstract. Don't expect a perfect introduction, because we know that crafting the introduction is more an art than a science. And even after 100 introductions, you will want to improve in 101 and 200 and 300 version. It's likely that you'll be more or less happy. But it can help you summarizing your very lengthy introduction. You have the main ideas and you want to decrease the lengthiness from 1,000 words to just 600 or 400. I tried this, but whenever I try this, it excludes most of the topics that I think they are relevant. But the artificial intelligence does not know. But in any case, can help you detect what are the main arguments, whether the arguments you are crafting in a background introduction are well crafted, even the Socratic opponent. Imagine that you have your supervisor with you 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. Could be something, just a joke, but yeah, it can criticize everything in your paper. Even you may ask to provide counter-arguments with another theory that may explain your results, or even to provide alternative explanations. So it's just like refining the argument, trying to search for potential contradictions, we may say, counterfactuals, whatever. It's good for that. Or even suggesting sexy titles. We are bored of antecedents and consequences of whatever. The effect of the mediating effect. Please. We need more sexy titles. We need that people may want to read the paper. If you start the title that way, well, you don't need to read the paper. The moderator analysis of means, yes, there is a moderator. This is a moderator of that. I don't need to read the paper. Specific artificial intelligence trained for scientific research. What can we use for that? For what? Well, in general, summarizing questions, answers, even advanced search, there are right now. And my surprise, I prepared this presentation not a few weeks ago for another seminars in Australia and in Felgueiras in Portugal. And in a few weeks, yesterday, when I was reviewing all the specific artificial intelligences, I found a lot of differences, a lot of improvements. Every day they improve. And even they can try some utilities for certain specific days and suddenly they disappear. But this is a question of days. In a few days, you will find new potential uses for this. In this case, you will find that there are some artificial intelligence, specific artificial intelligences that are useful for summarizing, dealing with PDFs and the like, and some other have included some ideas for advanced search, snowball search. We will review some of this. So for early career scholars, checking your first draft. You upload your PDF to a general artificial intelligence and you ask for criticizing everything. It does perfectly, and even will avoid the usual emotions of people. Oh, I cannot say this is a waste of time. How can I say that? No, it will tell you this is wrong, essentially. Don't waste your time. But we'll give you also some ideas for improvement. Or the interpretation of results. Many first year, second year students that are not very fluent with statistics, when they use an advanced statistic, need to interpret correctly the estimates and what it means. For instance, we are accustomed to the usual OLS regressions, parameter estimates, an increase in 1 unit, an increase in X units. But for instance, in regressions such as time duration models, Cox regression, or logic regression that are likelihood ratios, hazard ratios, sometimes if we include a moderation analysis, what does it mean? I cannot figure out what this number means. So copy and paste your results and ask for an interpretation for the artificial intelligence. And you will see that is very useful for that in case you are not fluent. And also, yeah, summarizing and Socratic opponent. What I think, it will speed up or should speed up the research process, especially for newbies, because in this case, you will allocate a lot of time for searching, summarizing. We don't know whether we have all the information or we should search for additional names. For instance, I have read a lot of literature review papers that are wrong. The search strategy is wrong. They only searched, for instance, for small ventures. But there are many other ways to refer to small ventures, small medium enterprise, small enterprise. micro enterprises. There are many different ways you can use artificial intelligence to provide similar content, similar ways to refer to the same notion. But do not ask for automatic writing, because it can be something not very useful at all, but the artificial intelligences do not have a dictionary behind that. It's just a training model with parameters. They don't have all the words in a dictionary. They have the likelihood that a certain word will follow to a certain other, and they are trained to learn from the algorithm. For senior scholars, do we need that, really? No, I don't think we don't need, but in any case, we can use. We think we don't need, but even in some cases, what we do when we go to conferences, we want to check how our colleagues will feel if we present our results and build our theory. But even the artificial intelligence can tell you something very similar to a reputed scholar. Of course, not exactly the same, because it's only the logic. But whether there is something missing that should be there, the artificial intelligence will not know, and the scholar will know. So to me, it's more a complement than any other issue. For instance, brainstorming of potential counter-arguments, because when we are building a theory, is our child, and we think that it's perfectly crafted and is very clear. Ask for this for the artificial intelligence to provide counter-arguments to your main argument, and give a response to the artificial intelligence counter-argument, and then ask whether it accepted your argument. And this can give you additional ideas to include in the paper and improve the theory of your paper. Also, external, very critical examiner, whether there is another theory that may invalidate my arguments, because sometimes if we use this theory, I can explain the results, but this other theory would predict something opposing sign, don't know, or what other theory we could use, and what else. I don't think that an artificial intelligence can provide you with new research questions. It can provide you with something that seems to be something new, but it won't be new at all. Don't trust this type of, remember that it's a machine learning, how it works. So, examples of scientific research-oriented artificial intelligences. On the left, you will find the usual general free artificial intelligences. On the right, initially, I have only 3. Right now, I have, well, 6, 7. But even you can see that there is academic research, at least 58 artificial intelligences, and you may search for them. Some of them, for instance, right now, Research ID is not working, but all the others are working. And even to my surprise, this week, our friend Paco, who is working with general artificial intelligences, we found that in the GPT's store of OpenAI, you will find all of this consensus, illicit, SCA space, all of them are already crafted and developed in the GPT's store of OpenAI. My idea was to allocate a lot of time, much more time to this than to any other portion of the presentation. And yesterday I was reviewing many of them, and even I found a very useful right now, Epsilon. Fantastic. And you will see for a first-year PhD student can do the work perfectly, searching and summarizing and providing tables, summarizing everything. To me, the best of them can be SCA's space, because it has a lot of utilities and may give you much more in a single place, can provide you to analyze several PDFs at once, a single PDF, or paraphrasing, this type of things. And then we have some other connected papers, Research Rabbit. They are more focused on the search, on improved algorithms for searching and finding additional papers that can be similar in content, but similar not in the semantics. Similar because they use certain words that co-appear, the co-occurrence of these words in a single paper. For instance, this is Semantic Scholar. Really, Semantic Scholar is not an artificial intelligence, but most of the main artificial intelligences oriented to scientific research use Semantic Scholar as the engine. What is the main problem of all the scientific-oriented artificial intelligences? We don't know what are the sources. We don't know whether they search for papers in Web of Science or Scopus or where. We don't know. We don't know how many journals are indexed in this type of artificial intelligences. And in early months, a few months ago, I found that the main journals in my area were not there in the list of papers they found. But in any case, Semantic Scholar is perhaps the main engine right now, and they use Semantic Scholar because it's very easy for them to develop any application, any API, so can take the information from here and work internally in the artificial intelligence. For instance, in this case, this search engine finds highly influential citations, 76, but also will provide you whether or how many papers cite in the background, cite in methods, cite in discussion. So it's very useful for you to find whether you are searching for something to explain your theory in the background, or you are searching for some theory or for the most cited papers. So this is really not exactly an artificial intelligence, it's more an advanced engine for searching and finding this type of papers. Then we have Research ID. Right now is not working anymore. I think that the business plan was not right, but essentially can do PDFs, analyzing PDFs, but we have some other that can do that. Consensus. Consensus to me was an impressive idea. Imagine that my question is, well, but really internationalization improves the profitability of the firm or not? What it does, search for that and provide you with 80% things or found it does, and 20% it doesn't. It's very powerful. The problem, essentially, the type or the list of the sources of the papers. Right now, we don't know, and when I searched for that, the list was very limited. I think they are using Semantic Scholar. It's similar to another artificial intelligence, Elicit and Epsilon, and right now I think that Epsilon is even better, perhaps in some cases, than Consensus. But essentially, Consensus, the pros is freemium, so it's free to use, unlimited portions, unlimited utilities, but then you can pay for additional utilities if you find they are useful. It can provide a quick snapshot for each of papers. And even here, you cannot see very well, but if you click on that, we'll tell you what are the key takeaways, and we'll provide you additional information. So it helps reading hundreds of papers. I'm not saying thousands, but hundreds of papers. The problems is exactly the same. It's very likely that the free version is not enough for you, although promises a lot of summary consensus to yes or no questions. But sometimes it doesn't work. It's still limited search for management, for economics, but we expect this will be improved over the coming years. And this is the case. Summary, yeah. Does internationalization improve the performance? We have here the information, but it's based on how many? 10 papers. Don't know. The idea is not a bad idea, but we expect to improve this. Epsilon, right now, yesterday was impressive. Let me go to Epsilon and show you on the website, because it's something very impressive. This is connected papers, no, Epsilon. This is the website, and I introduce a question. From the question introduced, it finds a lot of papers, and not only find papers, summarizes the findings of these papers. The question was, how is risk investigated in new ventures? And it provides ideas of how. But after that, they have asked a question, generate a literature review. It works quite well. It provides you the literature review, citing papers and organized in blocks. Of course, if as a supervisor I read something like this made by a first-year PhD student, I will be impressed, but I expect much more. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not the best way of writing these type of things, but will save you a lot of time. You will need to elaborate much more, refine the ideas, but look at this. Over here below, this is another utility, but let me go to the, yeah, need to do it once again. Let me ask, and we'll do generate. And it also has relevant papers, and will provide a table like this. You can see that there is the full information, the paper, what methodology was applied in the paper, and even on the right, what is the main contribution of this paper. We can find literature review papers published with this type of tables. I'm not saying this is the best, but we can trust what it says. But at least it's a way to start. And let me show you whether we have the literature review. Generating. It's generating, it analyzes the content of all the papers it found and key findings. And right now is writing, not only is writing, but also is citing something that is perfect for us. I'm not saying that this is the paper to be cited here, because it does not know what are the main papers to be cited. But at least will save you a lot of time, because in content analysis and summarizing, this type of artificial intelligence are quite well. And even will provide you with the key findings, the latest research, because it has a number and can interpret the year as number, and it knows that 2023 is later than 20 and 20. And also, it will provide sometimes bullet points with the main ideas from this literature review. And challenges, open questions, and opportunities. Of course, this will improve over the coming years, over the coming months, I would say, over the coming weeks, because they are improving, and the model is learning, and it learns as you use it. So the more you use, the more it will learn. And here you can see market adaptation, stakeholder engagement, risk management, governance, optimism, whatever, methodologies. So I think that right now, this epsilon to me is one of the most impressive right now, not because of the sources of information, but the ability to provide something well crafted. Because most of the artificial intelligences will provide you with sentences without structure. And scientific people, we are very, very structured. We need some type of building blocks and the like. So I summarize this in the slides, although very likely you cannot see much more, and the methodologies and the key contributions for each paper, and you can download in an Excel sheet and analyze later. SCI is a space, and this is another winner, at least for me. The pros, you can search, and of course, freemium. You can see it's 0, and you have some ideas you can use. And then if you want more, you need to pay. You can export to results to comma-separated values, so Excel sheet, improve results over the primary search engine that is Semantic Scholar. Even you can upload your PDFs, and based on your PDFs, we'll search for similar papers based on the content analysis of the papers you uploaded. And yeah, it was this, but right now it's not available. Yesterday, trust me, I built a presentation automatically from a paper. I uploaded my PDF, and it provides with the slides, discussion, results, background. Within the slides, it wrote something, and what was in the slide was right, and it's a summary. But right now, I was searching for that, but I cannot find. Don't know if yesterday was the last day or don't know. And also automatic video summary recording. You upload your PDF, and automatically will create an audio description summarizing your paper. The usual video summaries that some journals are right now emphasizing for widespreading the word of your results. It promises a summary of consensus to yes or no questions, but right now I cannot see exactly. And still the sources of information are a black box. Let me show you on the web, because you can see this is my, in all the cases, you should log in to save your results, and you can access your results, your historic results. I use directly Gmail or whatever, because it's very easy to log in. Right now, what it has the literature review, but it's not writing, it's just searching for the papers. And then you will have a list that you can download. It does not write the summary as the case of Epsilon. Then Copilot, for each paper, you may ask questions, or you may ask questions for a number of PDFs. And it will provide, you may ask for summarizing something, or I need, a reviewer told me that I need to justify why, whatever. Provide some ideas from these PDFs and tell me what are the authors that may justify that. Of course, you need to go to the paper there and read and check whether it can be useful for that. Also, citation generator, to me, this is irrelevant, because right now you go to Google Scholar, you can copy and paste. Paraphraser, this can be fine if you are not very fluent in English. Those of us who are not English native speakers, we are not perfect, and we always need to improve. But even if you can change it slightly, or even add additional vocabulary, it's useful for that. And that's all. Then on your profile, you may have a citation booster. Well, this is another utility. So is the idea of video abstracts and presentations. Here is the place. You upload the PDF. Right now it's free, but the main problem is that you cannot download the presentation. Well, it would be perfect otherwise, but I think you will need to pay for that. It's a good starting point. What else? This is SCI space, all the utilities. When you search for a paper, then you will see the list of papers citing this paper, and you may ask questions and we'll summarize for each of them. Chat PDF and similar other uses well, it's similar to research ID. Simply, you upload a PDF and you ask questions about the PDF. It's not exactly specific for scientific writing, but it's another way to summarize a PDF. And this is about writing. And my warning is still alive. I don't think that academic GPT right now is in beta version. If you upload here your paper, you can check argument strength, the language, coherency, originality, citation, but you can also check on write and can write the abstract, the introduction, and the like. Don't trust is a good result. But well, if you are a first year student, we'll provide you some hints and you need to recognize what the pattern is to improve your writing. What else? The general artificial intelligences. What we have over here are the usual suspects. In this case, the ChatGPT, in the profile, you can write who you are and the type of role you may want to for ChatGPT to have. So you don't need to repeat this constantly every time you ask for something. It knows what your profile is, that you work for a university, you are a scholar, researcher, scientific research, business management, economics, whatever. And this refines the accuracy of the predictions. Remember the issue of how this works. It's everything about the conditional prediction based on the context. Can be useful, for instance, if you are not fluent in using any statistical package, R, Stata, whatever, most of the code is usable. I mean, it's not perfect because, remember, it's a machine learning algorithm and it can detect the structure of any language. Surprisingly, Gemini, for instance, learned a language that was not trained for that. And developers don't know how. It's quite easy to understand because in the training time, in the training data set, the algorithm learned to learn. So it can learn anything right now. And R or Stata is a structured language. It's very likely that the command has a structure. You include the variables first, then modifications, modificators, whatever. And most of times it's fine. But in some other cases, the command does not exist. But in any case, you can search for the exact command or library to do that. And you can use 90% of the code. If you include your names, the names of your variables, it's very likely that you only need to change a couple of words. And then everything is done. Copy, paste, and run. It's perfect. For instance, I did not know how to include a loop in R, our Stata, and it tells me how to do that for each bar in whatever. Also, a prompt for summarizing. And here I will emphasize the idea of the structure of the ideal prompt. the role of a professional editor with decades of experience from the perspective of scientific research. What I'm trying to set is I'm trying to modify the type of outcome, the likelihood that the outcome can be used, and it will adopt this type of role. If you set the artificial intelligence, you will be a 3-year-old baby. It will behave like that. Not because it knows what a baby is, but in the training model is associated to certain language. Then you must summarize the action verb and additional explanations of the context and the outcome, 800 words. It worked perfectly. Or another example, suggesting different theoretical perspectives or approaches. And this is true. We already published the paper, not with any of this, but it's a true paper, and I tried to check how well this works. So I paste the abstract and ask the artificial intelligence to tell me what management theory could explain the results. I know what theory we use, and I'm convinced that the theory is fine. But I wanted to check alternative explanations for the discussion. We have included some, but not some other. And guess what? Resource-based view, institutional theory, and transaction cost economics. How is possible that? It does not know that these are the three main theories in management. Why? How is that possible? Essentially, it's because the conditional likelihood that this can be explaining a paragraph where you include resource, capacities, capabilities, of course, resource-based view is a question of likelihood. Institutional theory and transaction cost economics. It explains what it means. Okay, so redo the abstract based on the transaction cost economics, no longer than 123 words. It included a general statement. It doesn't change this between this abstract and some other, but it included, in transaction cost economics, transaction costs associated with environmental regulations related to reduce and paradoxically simultaneous process of open innovation, blah, 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 imposes transaction costs that could, it's using the argument. So in some instances, this can be very useful to provide you some hints in the discussion section, for instance, on potential theories that may explain your results if they are different to your main theory in your paper. But then you need to provide why you think your theory is the one you should use. But it will help you with this type of summarizing and abstracting, indexing, whatever. This is for institutional theory. As firms respond to institutional pressures for sustainability, then suggesting potential conflicts with existing institutional norms, complexities of managing dual institutional logics. But this is exactly the same, this blue part of the abstract. And in the next case, it was also fine. So, in summary, what conclusions we may draw from this? Well, more than conclusions, I want to include here the warnings. Don't trust anything that any artificial intelligence says. They are still in, let's say, advanced beta versions, and you are responsible of the content. It will save you or can save you a lot of time, but you need time to review the outcome. You are the expert. You will be the expert on your topic. It may save time for the searching purposes, for summarizing, but then you need to add something to this outcome. It's your interpretation. The artificial intelligence cannot create new knowledge. Don't ask artificial intelligences to provide the first draft of text. Every time I read, I have a PhD student, I have more than one, but one of them that sometimes uses the artificial intelligence to change slightly the vocabulary. And suddenly I read something new, but it's so new that it forgot the terminology we use in the area. And the meaning is totally different. So the artificial intelligence does not know everything. It's only conditional livelihood, remember. It does not give the same meaning to the words as we do. A child is not the image of the child in the brain of the artificial intelligence. It's just the livelihood of the words that may follow in the same sentence based on the past sentences. It's just that. And also check the policy of journals. Right now, journals have developed a policy, uh, most of them against the use of artificial intelligence, but they accept artificial intelligence for improving your text. The text must be yours. The ideas must be yours, not the ideas of the artificial intelligence. You can use the artificial intelligence to improve your text. It's not a problem. In some cases, they ask for including a statement that you have not used the artificial or any artificial intelligence for crafting the final paper, but just to improve your language or the vocabulary or the like. And also, for those artificial intelligence that are supposed to search in relevant databases, check the quality of results based on what you know, what are the main journals in your area. Because right now, we still don't know what are the main sources of information for these databases. They are black boxes. I think they cannot disclose that to protect what can be the main leitmotif of the artificial intelligence. But well, your literature review cannot be based exclusively on that, but you can use that to add to your previous literature reviews or even to update your literature review because you already have built some of them. In summary, the idea today was to explore artificial intelligences that are more oriented to scientific research, because we already know the general artificial intelligences. Whether you will continue doing things like this, as like in the old times, is a question you may consider. I never had used this anymore. And we don't come to a lecture and write in the blackboard what is already in the slide. What I'm wasting my time repeating and writing something that can be in a document. So don't waste your time for something that an artificial intelligence can do faster than you, although perhaps not better than you. And finally, of course, a joke. I don't need really an artificial intelligence because my wife knows everything. And we have a cup of tea for husbands, brothers, sisters-in-law, whatever. What it means, the idea of colleagues. Talk to your colleagues. Your colleagues are more experts than any artificial intelligence and can provide you feedback and hints on things like this. Trust your wife, trust your husband if you need a recommendation or a suggestion. And what I expect right now is that you have more questions and I can reply to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't know if you hear me, but thank you so much, Miguel. And trust your advisor as well and trust your instincts, right? So I open the floor for questions, probably in the room or in the chat. Also, in the chat, you guys can speak up because today we have the chance that you can open your microphone. Si hay preguntas en la sala, adiante, será un placer. Preguntas? Todavía non vexo ninguna, pero sí. Non sei se hai. Ai. Miguel, eu quería facer unha pregunta con respecto ao uso destas novas tecnoloxías que te indicaches que efectivamente os journals teñen determinados protocolos.
Way and I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to write the words and not the artificial intelligence. I just put in like what social capital has to do with stock market. And in a second it provides me the information I was 2 days ago spending, I think.
An equity, very likely.
Is it okay to copy paste this, or is it not okay? It's just you need to like you said, you just need to think that it's a nice background and do something on your own. And but I think the ethical problem behind is pretty important. How to do it in the way that, like, we are also facing the facts. My colleague said, "Oh, come on, have you seen the Quillbot? The Quillbot, and there was another one for paraphrasing." And I was absolutely impressed what it can do when you are paraphrasing the paragraphs from scientific papers into the. However, when I wanted to write an article based on my PhD, I just put in the Polish version, and it's probably in a second 60 pages written in English. It needs to be really read that it's proper, but the possibilities are unbelievable. However, I'm also confused what I will do when I will get the master's thesis for my student purely by artificial intelligence, if I will be capable to catch it, that it's not the student's work. You know what I mean? Thank you once again for the great.
You are welcome. Yeah, the main problem tends to be the context. For instance, if you give a sentence saying something about social capital, artificial intelligence will link or may link that to what? Can be your notion of social capital, but social capital may mean something different for different people. And even for a Spanish scholar, social capital can be related to equity. Which notion? The more you refine, the better. Otherwise, what you will get is something like this. Ethics, yeah, of course, but what happens when we have access to internet and we don't need to go to the library, search for the journal, read the journal and the paper in a hard sheet, and suddenly the number of references in papers jumped from 10, 15, 20 to 80, 90, 100 references per paper. Is that an unethical use of past research? And just copying, pasting, and paraphrasing to use? And is this wrong? The quality of your writing will improve if you use this type of artificial intelligences ethically. I remember some colleague that when wanted to say more or less the same as a paper, simply wrote with different words, but exactly the same sentence. Turnitin right now can detect that and will tell the editor the similarity index is 20, 30, 40, whatever, and you will be banned for the publication. So I think that right now is more about the incentives and the penalties for doing the wrong thing in the wrong way. Ethics, because of the ethics, we need to train students for what we can use that, and don't use this for automatic writing. I detected my students when using that and not acknowledging that. I tell them that they need to acknowledge they use artificial intelligence, saying, I use artificial intelligence for this. I asked the artificial intelligence this, it told me that, and I think what I think about that. But it's very easy to detect when an undergraduate student is using artificial intelligence. Why? because suddenly the language is perfect, wonderful. The sentence is a perfect English. And a final paragraph is saying, in conclusion, in summary, whatever. And nothing new comes later. For a PhD student, more or less the same. You will detect because artificial intelligences tend to use certain words quite frequently. It's very likely that navigating will be in your sentence, nearly 90% of times. We need to tell the PhD students for what they can use. To me, summarizing is a good idea, searching and refining the search, but not automatic writing, because it cannot know what is the core argument, what is your idea, and you are trying to build a new idea that the artificial intelligence does not know. Yeah, we will need to be aware of that and
this is a bit, Miguel, if I may
impose
follow.
some type of penalties, maybe. Don't know how, but it's a good reflection.
Yeah, and we have a question on the chat, and this follows a bit as what you were asking or indicating. And the question is, do you recommend any AI platform to study research gaps? Research gaps, what do you think? Can they identify them so far or not yet?
How can we identify a research gap is the question. Is the notion of research gap. And what type of artificial intelligence we can use for that. You will need to provide all the PDFs in a topic, and then provide enough context to reach this type of gaps. But it's very likely that the outcome will include what the papers, for instance, 20 years ago, a paper said that the new research avenues are related to automation of production. Right now, don't know if it's new. So we need to be careful, because I don't think that research gaps can be detected by analysis, will be detected by replicating what is in the documents. And this is very perilous, very dangerous, and it's very likely that you don't obtain what you are searching for. Although you may ask, or you may refine the prompt to obtain something similar. Don't ask for research gaps, but perhaps you may ask for what is the least likely research you would recommend. What I'm saying, that instead of the most likely outcome, we are searching for this word. So ask for the least likely, don't know, research topic, whatever, and we need to refine the prompt enough so we include all about this. But don't trust that they will find any new, original, impressive, counterintuitive, whatever idea that is totally new, because of the likelihood. It's a conditional association. Don't know if this solves the question.
Yeah, no, very, very good idea. Thank you for that. Are there other questions? Because I have one, but are there other questions in the room?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very important to read this, especially to hear on the side. Actually, I have many questions divided into two. One is a lecture and another one is just pulling out what they put in this side. Sometimes I'm scared about sharing this type of who we were students. I'd like to know for another feeling how you feel when you share these for with your students and awesome students. It's okay for us to share, but we also have to have some knowledge to teach them how we do it. So bring it to the table of the discussion and say that it's okay to use that. And then you have to be able to be aware about the consequences of that. And on the research side, what are you feeling about the next chapter of this novel? I mean, And what about the reviewers in the journals? They will be able to accept, for example, the methodology part, saying that you use that, it's okay for have some ideas and some conclusions, or you have to just think about it in the brief phase of the work.
For the first question, will you give a Ferrari to a 15-year-old guy to practice while driving? Very likely not, if you don't train the guy for using such an impressive machine. So the same happens here. Don't give this type of tools without a training session, what it can do, don't use this for that, and this type of issues. Another idea for the second could be whether in the future, if I were an editor of a journal, why should I use a reviewer? I can use an artificial intelligence to review your paper. Don't know the result, but it's very likely that in the future we can see something like this. At least for screening, for initial screening, could be the future. Imagine a journal receiving 3,000 papers per day. How can we select those that are top? You train a model with your parameters and we'll quickly tell you which one you need to read. Of course, you will need to review at the beginning. But I think that the main idea of the artificial intelligence for scientific research is to speed up the process, the initial process of a very early career scholar to get accustomed to what we do, how this business is, and the type of tasks they need to implement fluently. I think that, at least in my experience, using the artificial intelligence, even general artificial intelligence, and some of the specific during these months, at least one of my PhD students improved a lot because she has more time for what it matters than searching, refining the search, reading. Now I summarize. I want her to summarize, read, understand, and create something new rather than days, weeks, searching.
I have one question. Maybe without the microphone work?
No, because
Do you recommend us really seriously when
You cannot hear, I'm sorry.
we want to publish them? Shall we write for ethical reasons that I confess that I have used artificial intelligence in this paper or not?
It depends how you use artificial intelligence. Imagine the situation. Should I acknowledge that I have used Grammarly for improving the English? No. If you have used that for improving, I don't think you need, unless the editor detects, because Turnitin detects the proportion of text suspicious to have been created by an artificial intelligence. If it requests you for clarifications, then you can tell, I acknowledge that I use chess for the purposes of improving because I'm not an English native speaker. Not a problem. A different issue is this section was automatically writing for don't know what machine. It's very likely that if you read a portion of paper written by automatically by any artificial intelligence, you don't like it. And you detect instantly because it does not have that human touch and the selection, the choice of the words that we need to give the impression of what we mean, because artificial intelligence does not know the meaning behind the word. That's the question.
Thank you, Miguel. You hear me? We have a question on the chat. And the question is, as a PhD student, since there are different options, what AI tool would you recommend best?
Any of this, but right now, essentially, I think that the SCI space and the ellipsis was among the two priorities or two best craft right now. And then general artificial intelligence for the purposes of summarizing or whatever, but it will depend on for what you want to use. If you want to summarize hundreds of PDFs, you will need to pay because there is a limit in the freemium versions. But you might simply try any of them and choose in the test the one you think is or provides you with the best results, I would say. I would recommend initially, and for searching purposes, connected papers, for instance. It depends for what.
Yeah, good. I have another question about quality and a quality check on AI tools. You know that at times a ChatGPT provides you a lot of information, even the reference some papers. For example, if you tell ChatGPT, could you tell me what latest publications are out there about climate change? He will say, well, I am not updated until from this time, but before that, let me give you a few. And these are fully invented and in many occasions. Could you recommend us some tips to do quality check on AI output?
The question in this case is, why do you expect to provide something accurate? Because ChatGPT is not connected to the internet. And even if it were connected, it does not provide the sources of information. In that case, you should use Bing. Bing is connected to the internet and uses the algorithm of ChatGPT 4.0 or something like that. But if the question is about automatic writing, providing citations, and for this type of issue, we have another artificial intelligence specific for this. Don't use the general artificial intelligence for tasks that are not meant for that. It will create a kind of livelihood. Because I published many papers with this scholar, it's very likely it will create a new paper with me and my co-author with the same title in different journals, but because it's international business, the likelihood of Journal of International Business to appear is very high. So don't trust in general artificial intelligences for general purposes when you ask for factual questions. They are not good in factual questions. They invent, they hallucinate, so they cannot be used for that. Don't use artificial intelligence for that, at least not the general. Use the specific ones.
Great. Good suggestion. Thank you.
What else? Nothing else?
We don't have questions in the chat. I don't know if we have questions in the room. Do we have questions in the room? I don't see you guys.
No, I think we don't have.
Great. Well, so I hope we can have access to this wonderful presentation you gave us, because you gave us a lot of information, and it will be wonderful then to look at it back and think about all the reflections and ideas you gave us. Thank you so much, Miguel, for sharing so much information with us. It was extremely, extremely useful. I learned a lot, and I think many others too, and they are already thanking you on the chat and all in the room as well. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we look forward for future interactions with you about all these artificial intelligence tools. It has been very interesting. We learn a lot. Thank you so much. Oh, there is one last question that just arrived. When we are using AI to write a paper, this should be mentioned, yes or no?
It depends how you use artificial intelligence. As said, if you use artificial intelligence and you need to tell or acknowledge that you have used because you have used intensively a lot for summarizing purposes and the like, then it's very likely you need to acknowledge. But in that case, my suggestion is use the professional editing services to improve the image. The result will be better than the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel, once again, and everyone is thanking you on the chat as well. So thank you so much. A round of applause, I think, is very well deserved. Take care and have all of you a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So see you next week.